Hello, welcome to today's webinar on how to conduct a new business presentation. I'm Clifton Warren, Principal of Corporate Eye Consulting. You know, this is probably one of the most critical topics that there is. Because as a professional, if you're not able to effectively present yourself, your firm, your products and services, you're not going to be able to convert clients. And that's the secret to growth and building a thriving business, is being able to regularly convert new clients and sell existing clients new services. And so today I want to give you some techniques on how you can do that very effectively. I'm going to discuss with you firstly how to plan for a new business discussion. Next, we're going to look at how do you go about structuring your sales story, get it in the right order, the key ingredients that you need for that. Then we're going to look at creating a business presentation. I'm going to take you through step by step the process to put together a dynamic presentation that will allow you to communicate your message, but more importantly, give your client the important information they need. And finally, how to open, present, and close new business. Basically, what do you say after you say hello? And you'd be surprised at how many professionals I've seen when they've been out in the field that once a prospect says hello, they don't know what to do next. So today I want to take care of all that for you. You can do a great job on generating leads. You can do a great job on converting those leads to appointments. But until you're able to convert those appointments into clients, all that work can be for nothing. And one of the frustrations I see with many firms is that their low growth rate is due to inability to convert, or they have a very low conversion rate on their calls. So if anything, today I want to at least help you to lift that conversion rate. Even just a 5% lift in conversion rate can have a tremendous effect on the bottom line of your business. By failing to plan, you plan to fail. And that is so true when it comes to presentations. A lot of people you got to put thought into what you're going to do. You got to put thought into what you're going to say. Now, it's amazing as it sounds. Few professionals have really been taught how to prepare effectively. They've been taught the technical side of the business, whether you do wealth management, mortgages, risk management, accountancy, whatever. We have people in this webinar today from the Middle East, from Europe, from the United States, and offering a range of different solutions and services that they provide. But one thing is that very few people have been taught how to actually present in front of a prospective client effectively. And one of the reasons for that is that, in some firms, the rainmaker, the person responsible for bringing in business, would be just a handful of people. But with today's marketplace and changes, people that were just doing now have to sell. And so it's something that everyone has to learn how to do. And, it's really tough for the pros, the senior veterans, to share this information. It's not that they don't want to, is that, it's something they do unconsciously. And it's very hard for them to. It's sort of like going to Michael Jordan and asking him, how do you dunk a basketball? We have to stop and break down the process. Well, today, I want to pull this process apart for you and give you the ingredients that you need to prepare your presentations. Now, we're going to look at establishing objectives, how to plan your discussion. We're going to look at developing your interview plan, building your sales story, and preparing your presentation kit. So we're going to unpack all of this and go through it step by step. Number one, first step is really establishing your sales objective early. This is something you do before you even leave the office. This is something you do the night before, a couple of days before. And when you're setting your objectives, there's actually 5 types of objectives. Now, years ago, I was doing some work for a firm and who had a terrible conversion rate. And after spending some time with them, I quickly found out, and in fact, I only had to spend a few hours with them to find out. Their representatives were going out in the field and they were using the word slam dunk. What I call about a slam dunk was that was closing a prospective client on the first visit. In other words, go in there and present their stuff and walk out with a signed contract. And, you know, for those of you that have heard me speak, read my book, or have been on these previous webinars, my bias is for multi-presentations if required. In other words, minimum is probably about 2 appointments you might need to convert a prospect into a client. So nevertheless, so when you have an objective just to close a one-on-one sale, that's highly unrealistic and you can set yourself up for failure. So top professionals set some clear objectives early, and there's 5. The first one might be to simply make an appointment for the next meeting. You know, when I'm out in the field, I recommend when I teach and mentor that, you know, you take the first meeting to gather information and the second meeting to present your solution. Gives you time to go back to your office. I'll discuss this a little bit more shortly. So make an appointment for the next meeting could be one objective. Second objective might be to prepare a proposal. You know, the client might want to see what it looks like on paper, you know, what you've proposed. The third objective might be to obtain a lead or a referral. You know, if the client is not ready to go ahead or they don't qualify, you can still walk out with something. Fourth one might be to nurture. You may have a situation to where you have a prospective client that's simply not ready to do business with you yet for various reasons. It could be a timing issue, other priorities within the business. And the fifth one is to begin work. That happens, despite me talking about slam dunking earlier, but there's going to be occasions to where you can go into a client, the right need, the urgency's there, and they want you to begin straight away. So you have to be prepared for that. So what top professionals do, they set a minimum and maximum objective. And that allows you to have a range to work with, but more importantly, it allows you to measure your success. Now, these 5 points also, these 5 areas of objectives should also be put into your CRM system so that you can track and monitor where you are with a particular prospective client. So set a minimum and maximum objective. That gives you a range to work with. It could be anything from simple as have the client make an appointment for next meeting to, you know, obtain a lead or referral, whatever the case may be. So after you've set some clear objectives, and once again, you have not left the office yet, you want to then look at your upcoming discussion, and you want to carefully plan it out. And so the first thing you want to do is get clear about the need. You know, what is it that the prospective client wants to speak to you about? Now, this is not a cold call. I'm assuming it's not a cold call. So when you've made the appointment, you have had some idea of what the client, you know, wants to talk to you about. Either you've prompted them through your letter or through your referral, or they've responded to an email or through your website or something. They should be a clear need about what they want to discuss. Second step, you want to identify a solution. You may not get it right, but you want to have some idea of, you know, based on that need, what you're going to propose. Step 3, you want to start assembling the information that you may need for this given need. And it might be just rough information. You might have to have some discussions, but you want to at least have that information there. Fourthly, and this is the critical one, you want to identify information gaps. Now ask yourself, what do you know about this client? What do you need to know about this prospective client? And those form your questions. And you're going to see a little bit later, I like to have about 10 to 12 questions I ask during a discussion. But you want to, at this stage, identify your gaps of information. Now, one way to do this, if you use any kind of contact management system or CRM, you want to pull up a blank record and try to fill that out in a prospective client. The missing spaces can be your information gaps, which will mean that those are the things you need to ask during your discussion. Next, you want to set a meeting objectives. And that's previously the minimum, maximum objectives we just spoke about. And finally, that develops your interview plan that for your discussion. which we're going to move to next. So now you haven't left the office yet. You have not even gotten in front of the client yet. You're still working on developing your interview plan. Now, some top professionals, for some, you write this out. For some, you memorize it in your head, but you want to have some sort of structure or where you're going. The first one is you want to develop your opening benefit statement. You know, what are you going to say when you speak to the client? And we'll look at this a little bit further. You got to look at the information you need to verify and get your questions in order. You're going to look at the gaps you need to fill. And finally, you're going to develop 3 compelling reasons on why they should buy from you. Remember, people buy from you personally and buy from your firm second. And so it's important to write these out on why, 3 compelling reasons why someone should buy from you. And that forms the basis of your interview plan. Now, following the interview plan becomes your sales story. And you want to develop a sales story that's compelling. So the first thing you want to do, and there's only 3 parts to an effective sales story. You know, 3 reasons why a prospect needs your type of service that you plan to discuss. You know, put some thought into this. You know, you look at your ideal clients, look at the benefits they've gotten, that they've received from doing business with you. You know, so why does a prospect need the types of service that you plan to discuss? 3 reasons why your service is the best or your firm is the best. Answer. And don't forget, when you're developing a sales story, it is about the client, not about you. So everything we're doing is from the client. And once again, we're coming back to 3 reasons why they should buy. Now, this is developing a customized sales kit. This is really cool. And I think everyone should do this, and not enough people do. Typically what happens when you go out, when I see some professionals go out and on a new business presentation with a prospective client that's come through by a referral or sometimes just a phone call, they'll gather some brochures from their underwriter and just take them out there. Or they'll gather some brochures from the bank or whatever your product that you have. That is a big mistake. What you want to do is take the time to carefully construct a personalized, tailored sales kit. Some people call it a press kit. Some people call it a media kit. I like to call it a contact sales kit. And these are your silent sellers. You know, when you work with these, they're leave behinds. So what can happen, or what happened to me, is I was presenting one time to a CEO, and there was going to be a second meeting. When I came for the second meeting, not only was my sales kit on his desk, he had shared it with his other executives. They've opened it, they've read it, and so forth. These are silent sellers that stay there well after you're gone. So take the time to pull it together. Here's the things that should go in your sales kit. Testimonials. You should be regularly collecting testimonials from your best clients. And keep these current. So, you know, rotate them around. And you can collect, you know, if you sell business, you sell commercial, you know, collect testimonials from each. You want articles to support the hot button needs. Most firms, I don't care whether you do wealth management, insurance, banking, accountancy, there's some general hot button needs that you tend to sell to more often. So you want to have articles and tools to support those hot button needs. And that helps, you know, support what you're saying. You can obtain those from the paper. You can obtain those from trade journals. If you can obtain them from a client's industry journals, with the client's reading, even more powerful. Number 3, you want to assemble some case studies. Now, case studies are really before and afters. You know, what was life like for the client before you arrived? What was life like for them after they've met you? You know, how has it improved? And the middle bit is, what did you do to help them get there? So case studies can be 1 page, 2 page. I wouldn't make it more than 2 pages. And 4th, evidence and examples of your ability to solve clients' needs. Some of this can be related to case studies. Some of it can be actual visuals that you put together. A great way, particularly if you're selling any kind of uh, mortgage services, finance, or insurance. I know one top producer who was an active investor herself, and she was a mortgage banker, mortgage broker. And so when she sat down with the clients and speaking to them about her capabilities, she was happy to bring out her portfolio to say and tell clients, I'm an active investor too. I know what I'm looking for. She was one of the country's leading producers in mortgage and finance, and because she was able to walk the talk, quite a bit. So you want to be able to provide evidence and examples. It doesn't have to be your own portfolio, but you want to be able to demonstrate what you put together for clients and ideas. Books can also serve as that as an example of that. So that's your contact sales kit. It's personalized for each client. And to put these together, actually, all you need is a presentation folders. They're the ones that they have pockets on each side. They come in A4 size. They come in a variety of sizes. I use A4 size. Pockets on each side. There's a little die cast cut for your business card, and you fill these, with the appropriate items according to your upcoming meeting. Okay, so now we're up to everything we've spoken about so far takes place well before you're going to meet the client. This is your warm up, your stretching, your preparation. Now we're actually getting ready to meet the client, and there are 6 steps to the process. From opening discussion, defining need, defining the desired future, presenting solutions, handling concerns and information needs, and closing the discussion and moving forward. We're going to unpack each of these 6 areas here. So I want to give you the information that you need to be able to have confidence. But I can overemphasize the setting the objectives, creating your sales story, developing your interview plan. That all takes place in the office the night before, a couple of days before. And it's important because you arrive ready to go. You arrive focusing on not what you're going to say, but how you're going to say it. Big difference. Okay, so for opening discussion, step 1. The first thing you want to be able to do is manage introductions. And this can get awkward at times if you are taking someone else out with you. Work in advance of how you're going to introduce the other person. I've been out in the many calls to where I've been there as a coach or I've been there observing, and I made agreement with the person beforehand what my role is going to be, so I don't sit there like a dummy or a fly on the wall. But you want to manage those introductions smoothly for the client. Number 2, you want to build trust and rapport. You want to do this very early in the piece. Trust and rapport can take many forms. So, for instance, if you were introduced by a referral source, you can quickly introduce your referral source and work out how you've known each other. Sometimes if you're coming from an industry, you can play who knows who games. Family members, any common interest. You want to build trust and rapport so the person is relaxed. You're not there to, while you're there to pick up a client, you're not there to sell them. You're there to build a relationship, establish a relationship with them. Next, you want to identify the buying motives. And this is simple as saying something like this. Excuse me, John, what prompted you to speak with me today or meet with me today? And that will start identifying his or her buying motives. And fourth, you want to bridge the body of the discussion. And so after you got through the introductions, the rapport, you identify the buying motives, you might say something, if it's okay with you, today I'd like to share some ideas about and whatever the hot button need is. So after you've gotten through the introductions, the next is defining the need. You cannot sell to something that you don't know what it is. And just because you've done some work beforehand in the early phases of structuring your interview, and you've identified a possible need based on how you got the appointment, you don't want to take that for granted. You want to take the time to flush out the need. There might be some other needs there. I've seen a lot of money left on the table by sellers because the client might have called up, they wanted business interruption insurance. And in reality, they had a whole bunch of other needs, but the person only went in, sold them that policy, and off they went. So you want to take the time to verify the nature of the need situation. What is it? What's the scope of it? How big, how wide, how tall, how long has it been going on? You want to determine the cost to date. Is this, whatever this problem is that they're having, what's it costing them now? And you want to determine the consequences of doing nothing. If you do nothing, what is the consequences of it? Sometimes the needs are driven by a triggering event. So if you're in New Zealand and the Christchurch earthquake happened, there are a lot of people that were quickly updating their insurances and reviewing their coverages and their risk management plans and so forth. And finally, you want to identify buying motives again. You want to confirm them to make sure that they are what you think they are. You don't want to, so what I'm getting at here, you don't want to second guess any of this. You want to get the facts that you need. So defining the existing need so that you can know exactly what you're working with and you can propose the correct solution. Now, up to this point, you define it, you've managed introductions, you define the need. What I teach and coach professionals is that we do a 2-call presentation. So I may say something to the client that, thank you very much for the information. I'd like to go back to the office and I'll prepare a few things and come back with you next week. And I'll schedule an appointment then. The reason for that is that this is how you avoid leaving money on the table. And quite often, if we've gone in, if the client's called and they've expressed a need, we've gone out and seen them, we sold them that need, and we walked out and we just left all this other stuff behind. By taking the time to define the need carefully, I can then go back to the office and present a proper comprehensive solution. The first thing I do when presenting a solution, I want to discuss alternatives. And I usually like to develop 3 alternatives, A, B, and C, or gold, silver, bronze, whatever you want to use. And the reason for that is that I want to show the client that I've done my homework. And I've also put some thought into it. And then I want to outline the proposed solution. And I might say something like this. Here are 3 solutions, Ms. Prospect. Given your situation, I think we should start with solution C. And as you get comfortable with everything, we can look at reviewing this and moving you up to a B or an A, within the next 6 or 12 months. Something along those lines. Then third, you want to sell the solution and its benefits. You want to outline the proposed solution. Number 3, you want to sell the solution. What do you mean by selling solution? You want to convey to them what's in it for them. What, this is about the client. How would they be better off with this solution? And then you want to handle objections and information needs. And there are only 3 types of objections. By the way, if you have been in business for longer than 6 months, you have heard every objection that there probably is that you're going to hear. Therefore, it's unprofessional not to be prepared. If you heard them all before, you should be prepared. And sometimes you can anticipate based on the type of client and so forth, what objections you're likely to get. But there's only 3 types of objections. There's skeptics, there's misunderstanding, and there's stalling. The skeptic, they simply don't believe you. You missed something along the presentation. Sounds too good to be true. You need to overcome that one. Misunderstanding, that happens all the time. Where you've said X and the client thought Y. And that could be a language thing. It could be quite often in jargon. And stalling. Chances are if they're stalling, they're not the decision maker. If it's a business sale, they're not the decision maker, or they don't have the funds. They're not really qualified as such. But you want to be able to identify each of those 3 and handle those tactics. Now, the good news is when someone has information needs or objections, that is a positive. It is when they don't that I begin to worry. So if I've gone through my whole presentation, done all the work to get there, and the client is sitting there with his arms folded, I'm concerned. But the minute, even if they're skeptics, I have something to work with. If they're skeptics, I'm thinking, okay, I haven't done a good enough job on X. Or if they're stalling, I can flush out what the problem is, if they're not the decision maker or they have no funds or what the case may be. So handling objections and information needs is essential, it is good, but you must be prepared. So I suggest you write down all the possible objections that you've heard, write a notebook, and start developing answers for those. Work with a colleague, work with your significant others and a friend, your children, whatever. But you should be able to have these objections in categories and be able to handle things that are coming your way. Okay, so closing, move into action. I've watched a lot of people buy back the sale. The client's ready, and the person just keeps talking. Think, wait a minute, I got to tell you about these other 14 benefits you haven't heard yet. No. When the client's ready, you gotta move into action. The way to do that is recognizing when it's time to close. Now, there's no magic signal. There's no lights that come on, but there are little things that you can observe. If the client goes silent suddenly and starts nodding the agreement, that's a signal they're ready. If a client starts leaning forward, motioning to you, and sometimes they just say, "I got it." I've had one client say that to me, on more than one occasion. "I got it." That means, they're ready to move on. First thing you want to do when you move to the close, and by the way, forget about the 22 closes, the puppy dog close, the Benjamin Franklin close. These are just a natural conclusion to the conversation. No fancy footwork here or anything like that. Recognize when it's time to close. Debrief the prospect. Make us, summarize on what you've discussed so far, and then make a closing statement. And closing statement could be a number of things, depending on your sales process. If this is going to be a 1-call, 2-call, or multi-call sales interview, it might be something like this. Well, Nancy, I suggest that we set up another time. What I like to do is arrange for our surveyor to come out and we can get started for you. Or it might be something like, Nancy, let me put some things down on paper for you so we can see what it looks like in a proposal. I'll call you on Tuesday, and if it all makes sense, we can begin work straight away. It's just a nice, easy closing statement. You might want to have a few of those ready to go. One of my favorites, I learned this from actually a coaching client some years ago. He'd present the 3 options to the client, and he'll look at the client after, recognize the signal, debrief the prospect. He'll say, "I tell you what, let's put our toe in the water and get started. And then as you get used to everything, we can then adjust your plan accordingly." I love that one. And so, have a range of different closing statements you can use, but it's natural. It's just a conversation that you're having. The pathway you want to take. It's natural conversation. There's no fancy closing lines or anything like that, magic phrases. Okay, so we've covered, basically that's on how to present a new business discussion. Now, what I have for you as a free offer, as a participant for this webinar, let me help you to fine-tune your sales presentation, your sales discussion. So I have a free discussion review, free sales discussion review. The one will help you structure your sales story. So if you send me whatever you have, it's we'll set up a phone call. We'll go through your sales story, help you structure it. I'll provide you with a template so you can develop your sales story and that of your team members. And we'll have also a new business discussion checklist, some of the 9 areas you need to be exploring with the prospective client, when you meet with them. So that's free. You can contact me at my email address at clifton@corporateye.com.au. We can set up a time for discussion and run through it. Also, I encourage you to visit my website. There you'll find special reports. You'll find loads of articles. There's a book there, another book coming out soon in the next few weeks. Webinar replays. So range of material. Most of it's free. Help yourself. If you're so inclined, subscribe to my newsletter. Started by professionals globally. But I'd like to thank you for participating in this webinar. We have some more coming up real soon. I'll keep you advised of that. If you have any questions, drop me a line, connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or go to my site directly. Thank you very much again, and have a great day.